Welcome to another episode of Lead with Curiosity. And as the saying goes, today something a little bit different because I've turned the tides on the podcast collective. So today I'm actually interviewing Hugo, who's the gentleman behind the scenes of the pod collective. We're going to talk all about why he set up the pod business, the future of pod businesses, and he's also going to talk a little bit about franchising as well. So lots to get into. So let's crack on and enjoy the episode. Hugo, thank you so much for your time. I guess this is possibly a bit strange for you.
Yeah. I mean, welcome to our studio. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it should be that way, right? But yeah, either way, we're both welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Let's start at the beginning then. Tell us a little bit about the pod collective and how it came to be.
Yeah. So Jack and I really wanted to make a podcast because we knew sort of the benefits for us as business owners already. So I had a social media marketing agency called Social Room, and Jack, my co-founder, has a business called OSS Media, and that's a production company. And it very much came together to create the pod collective. But really, it was just to do a podcast to start off with. And the first episode that we did was in my rugby club's players' lounge, and it was all echoey and it was full of flies. I'm not going to say the name of the rugby club because it just sounds awful. But yeah,
Tell me after.
It was a bit of a baptism of fire, but we really enjoyed the sort of production side of it, and it's how podcasting has been booming in the last few years, and how it's really just sort of added to the marketing stack, I suppose, for businesses. And we just saw that opportunity. And I think we also, as we were getting into it and we wanted to get a proper studio and everything like that, we're ending up having to go into London. And logistically for us, that wasn't great. And there wasn't really that place to do it outside of London. So that's where the idea to make our own came from, and that's where our shipping container came from as well. So
yeah, tell us about the shipping container.
Yeah, so we were trying to find ways of actually having those studios, quirky ways. Obviously we could be in an office or we could be a co-working space, but we didn't have any sort of capital to pay for rent or anything like that. So we just thought, okay, what shall we do? Well, shipping containers. I like the idea of modular living and all that sort of stuff. And Jack just looked online, and we became experts in shipping containers in about 2 weeks. So like, we want a 32 by 10 foot one with this, and this. And, in about 2 weeks, we were on our way to Liverpool to have a look at this, second-hand container that was in a field full of them. We were documenting it by video and stuff like that, and wanted really to show our journey. And it did feel like we were just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's buy this. It was about, I think it was $5,000.
Oh, wow!
Got a loan.
That's not insignificant.
No, but we got a loan out to get that, and then from there it was, how are we going to sort this out? Essentially.
And we're chatting here today in Bloxham, just outside Banbury in the UK. How many studios do you have now?
So we've got 6 studios in 4 locations. So we've got this one here just outside Banbury. We say it's Banbury, but it's Bloxham.
Yeah.
We've got one just outside Milton Keynes in a place called Puxley, which is the shipping container, and that's got 2 studios in it, 2 slightly different styles.
So the shipping container is still going, right?
The shipping container is still going. We still have clients going there, and we actually use it quite a lot for our own content. So it's good. It has a lot of uses for us. But what we found with shipping containers is that they are cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and they don't have a nice toilet. Well, it's a luxury portaloo actually.
Well,
so
I should hope so for $5,000,
right? And then it doesn't have a coffee shop and stuff like that. So that's when we thought maybe we should be in co-working spaces, and we got Oxford, which is at the cluster in Oxford, and we're also in Northampton now. So we're all over the place.
So was that a strategic decision then to go for co-working spaces with the facilities you've mentioned?
Yeah, and I think it's because we sort of market ourselves as B2B podcast studios. So we work with companies to create podcasts for businesses. So we wanted to be exactly where businesses are, and we found that we actually had this pop-up idea for a bit. So we'd go into these co-working spaces and have like a studio that we'd put into one of their halls, and it would be just a pop-up, and they'd be able to book in, an hour here and an hour there when we were there. And we found that businesses are actually quite lazy. They'd like to be where they are, right. And that, we need to be exactly where that they are.
Guilty as charged. My office is just down the corridor.
So yeah, and fair enough. Why would you want to go far away to go to get some really good content? It should be on your doorstep, and that's what we believe. I think we want to make it as accessible as possible to get brilliant content.
You talked earlier about the growth of podcasts, and I think it's obviously still going. But is it purely podcasts you do? For example, I heard the other day someone talking about newsletters. I'd never considered this in terms of a video newsletter. So does that kind of come into your space, or is it purely podcasts?
Yeah. So essentially, we didn't, when we were setting out, we didn't want to be just your podcast studio, because that has been done before. We want to have slight differences. So essentially, we set about building services that are different to other podcast agencies or podcast companies. Usually you'll have, your basic rate, and then you'll have like tiered pricing, and you'll get a certain amount of things in a podcast with that. Where we have that, but then we have other services as well, which are basically solutions that help businesses. So the newsletter, the one that you said, we've actually built an in-house capability and an in-house app called Flowcast. And that allows you to send podcast episodes to your database and essentially nurture that database with a podcast or with media that you send to them directly. And this also allows you to build a subscription-based podcast. So if you were to build a big database of clients or a big audience, you could have a paywall in front of that. So they paid a monthly fee to get the content that's only sent to them, essentially.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that makes the content unique to them.
Exactly.
And is that something that's fairly rare at the moment, or quite niche?
Yeah, and I think it's the way that podcasts will go, though. Podcasts are massive, and as I said, and they're everywhere. But people will be looking to monetize it as quickly as possible. And if they've already got a database, and if they've already got a newsletter, why not build a podcast within that, essentially, that they can monetize?
Okay, no, that makes sense. So for a lot of people, podcasting is, for want of a better way of framing it, a passion project. Yeah. But you've turned it into a scalable business. Was that always the intention, or?
No, I think we started out with it being, as I said, it was our own thing. So we've still got our own podcast called Graftcast. Yes, we've been a bit busy, and we've been doing our own thing. And Anthony, we are very busy people.
Yeah, we'll come on to that.
But yeah, we still do have Graftcast, and the idea of it came from doing a passion project. But that also was something that we knew that would help us in business, and the reason why we wanted to do it is because it builds authority for yourselves. It shows the audience, specifically in what we do in production and social media and everything like that, what we can do, and it's literally for their eyes to see on social media. So it's a bit of a passion project, but it's also an authority builder.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. We were chatting earlier about the fact, before we started recording, that you're really in the throes of building a business. It's one of the reasons I was really keen to speak with you, because this isn't a look back in your deck chair 20 years later and what do we do? You're very much in it. And were there, or even are there, any uncertainties about starting? Because you seem to have just thrown yourself in and really gone for it. But any kind of doubts along the way?
Oh yeah, doubts every week. It's juggling everything. As just two co-founders at the moment. We now got to a point that we have very outlined our roles very much so, and Jack is amazing at the production side of things, you know, and he's a very good sort of customer service person. I think he's a very
lovely fella,
likable guy.
He may or may not be. He may or may not be in the same room listening.
Yeah,
to this,
let's talk about him like he's not here
now. But I can vouch for that. He's a nice fella.
That's why I was squirming when I was talking about that. But yeah, you know, he does, and that's obviously a very important part of it, and it's a huge amount of work, and it takes a lot of time. So that's why it's quite important to have, you know, me on sales, marketing, and the branding and everything like that, so that's taken care of, so that we can actually, you know, get the business in at the same time.
And I think that is part of the challenge of starting a new business, because listen, the reason you're busy, let's be clear, is because you're successful and you're good at what you do. I should say you're also a nice fella as well. Clarity. But it's all well and good being nice and friendly and good to work with, but you've got to be able to deliver on that as well. Yeah. So in terms then of scaling up, I know you've talked a little bit about franchising as well. So would you mind talking a little bit about that and what that looks like?
So essentially, the idea of franchising came up was because we were looking at recruitment and how we were going to get new people in that had the same passion as us for what we're doing, and it doesn't come easy, that sort of thing. Yes, at some point we would like to, you know, maybe have an apprentice or maybe have someone who can build with us. But even them, finding the right person that has the same amount of passion as we do would need to be a business owner, right, at the end of the day. And I think that's the reason why, one of the main reasons why we're looking at franchising as a main way of scaling, because those franchisees are those business owners, and they, you know, they will live and breathe our brand. And I think that's, you know, that's why we want to scale in that way.
So for anybody listening that's thought about franchising or dipping their toes in, I'm just curious, what's the process? How do you even start to go down that route? To
start franchising?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you even?
So I mean, it's not written anywhere in the. To be fair, UK is quite interesting because it's not regulated in the UK. So in America and Australia and everything like that, you have to go through an actual process, and I think it's, you know, a considerable amount of money to start franchising. You have to have like an accreditation and all this. Whereas in the UK, there's nothing like that at the moment. So there's no accreditation. But what I would say is we have gone down the route of going with a consultant, a franchise consultant, licensing consultant. That's what they're called. I won't say them on here, but it's that they've been excellent, to be fair. And they've sort of guided us through exactly what we should be doing on the lead up to marketing our franchise program, essentially. Anything from legals, which, by the way, I'd say legals are the most important part of it, right. Being absolutely watertight with your franchise agreement so that you are in a strong place, as well as the franchisee. How you market it, the manuals, everything like that you need to market your program, essentially.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot.
But I guess once you start that process, right, then you can really go for growth. And you mentioned UK there. Are you any plans for world domination, or are you looking purely in the UK at this stage? If
you ask me and Jack privately, yes, like world domination. Okay.
But you know we're recording on a podcast now, right? Yeah. I've just told everybody.
I know. Yeah. No. I mean, every time we've spoken about it with the consultant, he's sort of knocked us down a peg or two. He said, right, start in the UK, and then we'll see where it goes. But yes, who wouldn't want to see their brand that they made in their mum's kitchen worldwide? I
love the entrepreneurial spirit. And I guess speaking of that, there are lots of people that talk about starting a business. I think the difference between starting and doing it are two different things. Do you have a view on what holds people back? What's the difference between saying you're going to do it and then actually going for it?
I mean, it is a very big step, I have to say, and it's something that I probably didn't think about too much when I did it. I really just like the idea of having my own thing, and not really answering to people unless they're the client, of course. But I think most people wouldn't do it because they're quite risk averse. I'd say, it is a big risk, but when you're younger and you don't have as many responsibilities, I think it's it's worth a try.
It's the perfect time.
Exactly.
And I guess you could say that people are going to be more forgiving if it all goes horribly wrong.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. And what's the worst could happen is there's quite a lot of bad things that could happen, but you'd have to get yourself pretty hard into a hole for that to happen.
Yeah.
What I'd say is, I think actually what I'm going to say is people very much take other people's opinions gospel. So my family, I'd say, are quite risk averse. And if I was to just listen to them, or listen to a lot of people in my family, won't name any names, but lots of people in my family or lots of my friends, they'd probably say, no, just get a nice job and be okay. Don't listen to the outside. If you're really happy about what you're about to do and it excites you, absolutely go ahead and do it.
Your face just lit up then.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but it's really interesting you use that phrase, excites you. It's something I can really relate to.
Yeah.
It is scary. I won't lie. I spent about 18 months trying to talk myself in and out of starting up. That was nearly 21 years ago. It is. As you said, it's a big step.
Yeah.
But if you've got that passion, you've got that excitement, that drive, it's definitely something that's worth considering, worth doing. It's funny listening to you there. You reminded me there's a great TED talk by a guy called Tim Urban, called "Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator," I should say. It's about procrastination, and he uses the example of being asked to do this prestigious TED talk, which is a big deal for him, and then he's actually got to write it. And he weaves this very cleverly into his talk, but he says, I liked the idea of having done a TED talk as opposed to actually planning to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's often the case with running a business. I like the idea of sat as we are now with several studios, with a franchise program on the go, with an exciting path ahead.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of steps to go along the way.
I think as well, I would feel I'm terrified of regretting that I didn't try it.
That's interesting.
As well, like if I was to get to one point of my life and I hadn't done what I'm doing now, I would regret it massively.
That's a really refreshing way of doing it, right? So at least no one can accuse you of not having a go.
Yeah, exactly.
But listen, we're talking like it's all gone horribly wrong, as it's not. It's a really success. The business is growing quickly. Are there any key decisions that you've made along the way that you think will have helped you with that momentum or will continue that momentum?
Something that I touched on earlier was having clear roles. I think that, and yes, sometimes we'll do some sales stuff together or something like that. But as long as we know and we've had that conversation, I think in that communication, if you've got a business partner, you really need to be talking to them honestly on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, because if one of you's feeling as though you're, shortchanged, or if you don't feel as though it's being fair, one's being fair to another, then you have to say it. You have to have that straight up conversation, and communication is a huge factor. Absolutely.
Again, you reminded me. I've become a podcast fan since doing these. The High Performance podcast
Love
with
it.
Jack Humphrey, which is great. I'm late to that particular party, so I'm enjoying going through some back episodes. And showing my age now, Torval Dean, for any of you listening that remember the 80s and Bolero and all that stuff, they talked about that partnership, because that's an interesting part of this. There are two of you, and they were saying exactly that. It's you've got to be all in, and they talked about the fact that they would turn up for training regardless if one of them was ill or had period pains or whatever it was. They were going to be on that ice for those 6 hours and that commitment. So. But they also had clear roles. So Christopher Dean was the creative one, and I guess Jane Torval was the not the sensible one, that the one that would kind of take these great ideas and curate them. So it's really interesting to hear that you've got those clearly defined roles.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's you can't not communicate between each other and expect it to work. And we do spend a lot of time together, so you need to like each other as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to read his facial expressions now. But
I'm just looking over at Jack every now and then, like.
Fantastic. Just before we wrap the conversation up, and again, thank you so much for being so refreshingly open and honest with it. As you know, the title of this pod is Lead with Curiosity. So what are you curious about learning next, either professionally or personally?
I'd say managing people. As I said, it's just me and Jack at the moment. I'd say managing people is probably the next thing, and we like the idea of passing some of the bits onto someone that can support us, and absolutely the managing of them. And I know it's easier said than done, absolutely. But I'm looking forward to learning how to manage people and perhaps show my leadership skills.
Superb. Well, the temptation to say is, I might know someone who can help. But we'll chat about that offline. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with Hugo. You could see the energy and passion that came out of it. He really enjoys what he does, but also that conflict of how do we grow? How do we kind of get people to add to the business that was as passionate as he is as well, and his business partner Jack. So lots to take away there. I hope you found the episode as enjoyable as I did. Please give us a follow if you like the content. There's plenty of back episodes as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you for the next episode very soon.